And gentlemen, welcome to this session on global harmonization. I hope you had a wonderful break and lunch. Now let's talk about something very, very important, how to harmonize the global markets on hydrogen. I would like to remind you that we are in year number 3 of this event here, so for the 3rd year. In most of the countries globally, we are in year 5 or 6 of hydrogen strategies, and that is why we need to start to compare the hydrogen sector to other sectors. It took oil, gas and coal between 44 and 50 years in order to get a 10% market penetration globally. The renewables are at 7–8% globally. It took them 20 years, much faster, but it still takes time, and they didn't reach the 10%. This is why we should be cautious in going for over-expectations in the hydrogen sector. The hydrogen sector is, again, in a very early stage. However, we need to make sure that global standards are everywhere the same. And this is something we need to fight for, because it is not the case so far. The good news is that during the last COP in Baku, Azerbaijan, the global leaders convened and signed the so-called Hydrogen Declaration. So after the big pledge of COP here in Dubai, in the Emirates, where we had the tripling of renewables, the tripling also of nuclear, and the doubling of energy efficiency, one COP later, people understood we need to do something on hydrogen, because all these electrons need somehow to be stored, to be transported, and that's good. At the same time, the global leaders, the so-called International Hydrogen Trade Forum, adopted some fundamental ISO standards. So this, for most of you, does not sound very attractive, but standards are the currency of global trade. Standards are important, and the hydrogen sector has, all over the years, developed some important standards that are very, very transparent, that show the emission footprint, the carbon footprint, and this is key. We now need to adopt, all of us, the same standards the same way. This is what our panel today is about, and I also would like to say that different geographies, of course, have different political cultures, different ideas how complex things should be, and this is why it seems to be complicated at the moment. Let's make it simple, let's make it easier, let's discuss today how we can implement the global harmonization of standards for the hydrogen market. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a great lunch. And I would like to start by thanking the organizers for making my job super easy, because if I look at this panel, I don't have to do much. All of them are top-class experts in their fields, and my job is really to cut them short, because I'm sure that if I give anybody the mic, they won't stop talking because of the richness of the messages that they have to convey. The topic, however, is not that easy. I remember we had a Belgian astronaut visiting us here in Abu Dhabi a couple of years ago, and he told us about the International Space Station, which has 110 volts in some modules and 240 in others, because we couldn't agree on a standard. And the same was actually also true for the water purification. So there are 2 different types of water purification. If you would, connect the wrong ones, you would poison the astronauts. So standardization is hard, but it's also necessary. And I would like to start with you, Alicia, because part of what you've been doing is working with the International Maritime Organization, which is a global organization that regulates shipping. And part of that effort has been looking at standards and harmonization. What can you tell us about that?
Sure. So I think a lot of people would be familiar with their biggest meeting, which was MEPC 80, that was in 2023 summer. And that's when they actually announced some major goals, a big shift in thinking. IMO had basically promised to hit net zero by 2100 originally, so not very aggressive. And MEPC 80 was agreed that they would do it by 2050, so it's in line with most places, which is great. But also they agreed that they would do cradle to grave or well to wake, however you want to call it, basically a life cycle analysis of the emissions so that you would have an emissions intensity factor, and that is how you could compare the fuels. They also agreed...
And it's mostly about the fuels, right?
Yes, so the fuels, I was just about to go there, but you read my mind. The fuel standards, first about the fuel standards themselves, what types of fuels, but also they have a target for 5% being zero emissions or near zero emissions fuels, which is essentially hydrogen-based fuels, and stretching or striving for 10%. And that is a huge amount, actually. When they actually calculate the percentage, they're starting in 2008. So when they say net zero in 2050, they're starting from 2008, and they have to reduce down from that baseline, and they've been growing at 8% per annum. So it's actually, when they say 10%, it actually, for any other industry, might feel like 100%. It's really, really a large amount to cut. They also agreed that they would have a number for the financial incentive/disincentive for shipping with inappropriate fuels or fuels that are dirtier than others. And that is going to come out this summer at the MEPC meeting in June, and that is being agreed right now. All of the meetings between 2023 summer and now have been very positive, and it's just been another step forward towards this agreement. But the IMO is composed of, I think, 180 member states, and unlike other bodies, each state has one vote. So it's a really difficult thing to get everybody's agendas.
Like the United Nations, right?
Yes, and getting everyone's agendas aligned is difficult because some countries are responsible for the problems, like my own country, and some countries are suffering from what has happened because of the problems, and they fear that some of the rules that come into place might harm them. So, something has to be negotiated well. But the new Secretary General is Arsenio Dominguez, and he is just a fantastic negotiator, an incredible person who's looking out for all of the member states. And he's in for 8 years. He just got in last January. And so that is just amazing sign. And before that, he was the head of environment. So this is very much on his radar screen. And I think we have the best chances ever of getting a really good plan moving forward that will encourage shipping companies to use more environmentally friendly fuels.
Thank you. Now, if you're then looking at, let's say, a global industry like shipping is, that is the definition of a global industry, what is their thinking around, what kind of organizational structure can support the standards, that will underpin these fuels?
Well, I think they've been working with a number of different entities, like the International Hydrogen now I've forgotten it, International Hydrogen...
Partnership for Hydrogen Economy?
Well, everything sort of goes back to APHE, right, which people heard from earlier. So APHE standards and ISO standards, those will be generally used. So the standards themselves are not really that contentious. About 80% of the whole shipping world, so not by population, but by amount of shipping done, about 80% of those countries have already agreed they're going to do this life cycle analysis that will show what the emissions intensity is of the fuels. So that part is generally agreed, and that's with ISO. And most people find ISO to be a good third party to regulate in terms of standards.
But then you have the standards. Then how do you...
But then you have the regulations.
Yeah.
And I think that's the distinction. The regulations are by the countries. So the countries they're right to say we're going to allow this level or this level. They have their own roadmaps to their net zero dates that they've agreed to. And if So they have their own ability to say what the regulations will be. And so part is, I think everyone is going to respect the standards of others, like the regulatory standards, but not calculate the standard in a different way. Do you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah, of course.
the math is the same, but my country might say we only will allow 20%, and another country might say we'll only allow 30%, and the tax might be different on either. And so, just
As
like
long
it is,
as it fits the overall IMA standards, it all adds up to the same.
exactly.
Interesting. Thank you. Franz, VERBUND is the largest Austrian company, and you've been among the most active companies developing the European green hydrogen space. Now, what are, from your company's perspective, key regulatory hurdles that stop you from going all out on hydrogen?
Thank you, Frank. Happy to be back at the Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week. Thanks for the invitation from our partner, Masdar. VERBUND is actively driving the energy transition by producing green electricity and green hydrogen for our customers. And to really get to a traded commodity market or cross commodity traded market, I believe we first, of course, have to connect the markets with the infrastructure, to build the infrastructure. If we look to Europe, I'm talking about a pipeline system which connects the markets with, of course, the production sites, but as well also the ammonia import terminals. If we look at the gas market, we saw that the last decades we achieved it there to have infrastructure which enabled then the traded hubs and the de-risking also for all the players in the market. Of course, if we transform now this gas infrastructure to a hydrogen infrastructure, there are a lot of technical and regulatory issues to be tackled. As well, we need a smart incentive plan to make this transformation happen.
Sorry to interrupt you. Somebody once told me that if you want to transform a natural gas pipeline into a hydrogen pipeline, that actually takes longer from a regulatory approval standpoint than building a new one, because you have to convince the regulator that you're not distorting the gas market, which can take whatever 3-4 years, which is the entire purpose of the transformation of the pipeline. I mean, does that make sense? Is that helpful? What's your view on this?
Yeah, of course, it's delaying, but we are also working together with partners in Germany, Austria, and Italy to make the South H2 corridor happening and reality. So to connect North Africa with Central Europe, we believe this is the most feasible corridor, because also we have the opportunity here to use 75% or up to 75% of existing pipeline infrastructure. Yeah. And this, of course, is a big advantage in achieving also a cost-competitive way to transport large amounts of the hydrogen. Yeah.
Thank you. No, that's very helpful. Sorry, please.
No, and there are a bundle of other topics like the certification or on the production side. If we look to the production, of course, we have some clarities on the regulation there. If we look at the RFMBO Delegated Act, of course, it's good to have him, but it's not.
We'll let Jorgo discuss that later on.
It's too complex in the end, and so we have to get more flexibility there for the project developer, that we really get into the mode to bring the projects online, and then are talking more about the details of certification.
And there's a lot of details. No, thank you. Kanehana-san, Japan has been among the earliest countries to develop a national hydrogen strategy, also with a focus on hydrogen imports. Now, Kawasaki has been involved in liquid hydrogen as the preferred transport vector. Can you explain us why that is?
Thank you very much, Frank-san. Can you hear? Great question. But first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to be the panelist here today. And before answering to your question, there are three methods to carry the hydrogen between the continent: ammonia, LOHC, and liquefied hydrogen. And I don't want to say which one is best.
Why not?
No, I don't think so. Each method has the pros and cons. Ammonia pros is everybody is handling ammonia for many decades, so they know how to handle ammonia. The con is, as you know, they're toxic, and if you extract the hydrogen from the cracking, the ammonia, it needs energy. And LOHC pro is you can use existing infrastructure of a petrol tank kind of thing, tankers. And con is to extract hydrogen from LOHC, you need energy. And the liquefied hydrogen pro is the most efficient way to carry the hydrogen as a carrier. And con is nobody has ever done it. And also, technically, we need some kind of a challenge to keep minus 253 degrees C, the cryogenic. And why we picked liquid hydrogen is we, Kawasaki, built the large tank for the Tanegashima space station in Japan. As you know, the fuel for the space rocket is a liquefied hydrogen. So we built the large tank with a supply system, and more than 40 years ago. So we know how to handle the liquefied hydrogen. And we are building also the LNG carrier. It's a minus 162 degree. It's a cryogenic liquid gas. So the liquid hydrogen is 100 degree below the LNG, but most of the technology can be used from the LNG to liquefied hydrogen. And so we decided as a company strategy more than 15 years ago, okay, we will establish the supply chain of liquefied hydrogen because we know how to store, how to transport, kind of thing. And we did a pilot project 2 years ago, and we completed 3 round trips. We built the pilot ship, so-called the Swiss Frontier, which can carry 75 tons of liquefied hydrogen. And actually, we brought the ship here 2 years ago, and your people tried to ride on the ship. But anyway, so we completed the pilot project between Australia and Japan. We made 3 round trips to carry the liquefied hydrogen between the continent. And now Japanese government, they passed the so-called Hydrogen Society Promotion Act last year. And within that law, government is preparing $20 billion US fund to support the project. And for one, probably one project for ammonia, one project for LOHC, one project for liquefied hydrogen. So we raise the hand, of course, and hopefully they pick a project. Then we will build a large ship which can carry 2,500 tons of liquefied hydrogen. And also they will subsidize the capex of a receiving terminal, and they will support the price difference between the hydrogen and fuel, the fossil fuel for 15 years.
Well, I mean, yeah.
But one condition is we need to take off-taker with us. Because many projects in the past failed because of they couldn't find an off-taker. So off-taker is very important. So I cannot tell the name yet, but we already found the off-taker. So we will raise a hand, and hopefully government will pick us as one.
No, thank you very much for that. And yeah, we should all thank Japan for, again, taking the lead. And $20 billion is a sizable amount of money, especially to convince people like Mohammad. I mean, you took him on the Swiss frontier, and I believe Masdar is actually looking at the liquid hydrogen project. Mohammad, at COP28, Abu Dhabi announced the low carbon hydrogen policy for the Emirate. What is Masdar doing in that context?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Frank, for this amazing panel. I'm really enjoying it, even being an audience as I sit here on stage. It's quite impressive. And for me, I think when it comes to harmonization of global standards, I think it's one of a very important enabler that help us all to push the green hydrogen from being only a concept that is sometimes doubted into the next reality of life. We need to, collaborate more than compete at this particular stage. I think when it comes to UAE was amongst the first to announce the national low carbon hydrogen strategy, whereby we have committed to 1.4 MTPA by the year 2031. The 1.4 comprise of 1 MTPA green and 1 MTPA blue. Abu Dhabi as a champion of Masdar as a champion of Abu Dhabi Inc. We are committed on the green hydrogen. We're colorblind, similar to my Kandura. We only see green. So we, not only I have the most awkward title in the world as a chief green hydrogen officer, the one and only, but we're much determined and focused on the green hydrogen as being the way forward, while we also consider the bigger spectrum of the energy mix. Department of Energy, being the policymaker and regulator of Abu Dhabi, has issued back in December 2023 during COP28, the Abu Dhabi Low Carbon Hydrogen Policy, which was trying as much as possible, to align with the international regulation and governance in relation to classification and standardization of
I think it's you.
The killer is in the house.
Okay.
We need a mic. Yep.
That's what we wanted anyway.
Hello, can you hear me? So with this, firstly, Abu Dhabi has aligned itself with the bigger picture in relation to the international regulation standardization when it comes to the classification of green vis-a-vis blue, though nowadays we don't like much the color coding. We like to call it according to the carbon intensity. So it has mandated Masdar exclusively on behalf of Abu Dhabi Inc. to take that leading role in the development of green hydrogen and derivatives. And by derivatives, we mean all the derivatives that could come as a result of the conversion of green hydrogen to a fuel, whether that fuel is methane, ethanol, methanol, whether if it's RFNBO, whether if it's DRI or ammonia. It all covers that spectrum, and also to develop the required renewable energy to produce that green molecule. In addition to that, they have identified what we call the oasis, and by the oasis are the zones that are mostly suitable to produce green hydrogen cost effectively, where we have infrastructure in ports. So one of the oasis will be, for example, in the Ruwais area. For you who knows Abu Dhabi, this has always been a chemical compound, wholly owned and operated by ADNOC subsidiaries, and this is where we have all the required ports, all the required storage facilities. We're even capitalizing on some caverns, salt caverns that ADNOC is operating for storage facilities as well. And we have also the right land to operate, or the right oasis to develop the renewable energy requirement at the most cost-effective way. And then that's the first step. Once this has been identified, we started working diligently with the broader Abu Dhabi Inc. to come out with a deployment plan, an action plan, how we can transform this policy into a roadmap moving forward. And I think we are at an advanced stage where we are continuing the engagements with the different players, whether we're talking about Abu Dhabi National Oil Company and the development of the connecting pipelines between the different ports, or the different, what we call oases, where we can not only consider them for green if we continue the color coding, but green and blue based on mass balance. That could also improve in the costing, in the cost of production of low carbon hydrogen. And also working with the TAQA on the transmission mains. We are planning dedicated transmission mains that will take the green electron where it's produced at the most cost competitive way, whether wind or solar, to where the green molecule is being produced at the most cost competitive. And we do that all with perfect alignment with European regulation when it comes to the classification of green hydrogen fuel.
Thank you, Mohammed, and this is a fantastic segue to Jorgo, who already gave us a little bit of a flavor of his thinking. I mean, I know that you've been working hard on improving the onerous European, standards that stem from some anxiety about the grids and the additional burden on the grid that some people think is important. But of course, you don't agree. Now we have something. So the question is, are you now trying to change that, which will lead to more delay, especially now because the United States has 45V, which is slightly better. What is your view? What should Europe do in your perspective?
First of all, I would like to say to Mohammed, thanks for bringing us all together. This is a fantastic conference, and the hydrogen sector needs that Global Hydrogen Day where we can discuss on very high level these things, and really congratulations to that. You brought it to the point. You don't like the color code anymore because it's not about colors. It's about carbon content. And I think if we would agree upon the 3 C's, carbon content is the new currency. We need to be able to account it, to understand how much of carbon content does the hydrogen that comes from Austria, which is very renewable, or that comes from possibly Azerbaijan, Baku, which is cleaned up. What's the carbon content? And here we need a joint, maybe a global way to look upon it. And on global level, we have some ISO standards that look into transparency from cradle to grave. That's important. We are proud of it. But honestly, we have been attacked by some NGOs, by some people who prefer electricity. Because if we compare the rules for hydrogen, they are much harsher than the rules for electricity. If you would start with color codes and electricity, you would see that it would slow down this sector enormously. That is why it's important to agree that this carbon content is important, number one, and then to come to align in ways of, well, putting a label on it. We are about to develop a digital product passport, which gives you an information like a food label on the purity of the hydrogen, the origin of the hydrogen, and whether or not it complies with rules. We have seen that in the US, last days of Biden administration, the rules have been adapted or changed. In Europe, and that was your question, the rules are extremely complex. They are over-complex. I have had.
But should we improve them right now, or should we rather, provide stability and clarity? Because that's what we're hearing from the industry also. People say, well, what if you're going to change? Then, what is my investment going to do in the future?
I want to be very honest to you,
because
I had last week a meeting. It was the first meeting of this new commissioner, the new commissioners on energy and on the climate. So it's the new executive vice president of the commission, Mrs. Ribeira. And she asked, can we come to results without big changes? And my proposal was, let's start with lead markets. If we start with lead markets, let's say fertilizers, green steel, refining, which is the biggest markets, and we convene that we look how we create a partnership and work together, possibly more intensively with these rules because they are complex than with less complex rules, that needs a lot of more effort, but we do that. So these 3 lead markets are a way to test whether these rules.
So we're not going to change them in the short term. You're not advocating for changing.
Now, the second part of honesty, the policymakers will understand what you said. It's too complex, and they will rush in order to be competitive on global scale, because the UAE is not waiting. Saudi is not waiting, India is not waiting, Japan. So the Europeans will adapt, I'm absolutely sure, because they will see it is not working. And that's why I'm very, very confident, but I need to be honest to you, that's the way to go. Let's start lead markets. We had here a fantastic meeting on fertilizers already, and that's a good start.
Thank you, Jorgo. I see we're running out of time. I wish we had a half an hour more. But Kanehana-san, what is Japan's view on standards? I mean, they're slightly different from the US and Europe. How do you harmonize that in terms of carbon content and the greenness or the blueness or the whatever?
Yeah, Japanese government is looking for all the regulation standard all over the world, and they are referring all standard in every countries. And I think they are trying to find out which one is the best. And the Japanese government is always talking with the European Union government. And the best way is we need to have a synchronized, uniform regulation and standard in all over the world. So I think one of the body like Hydrogen Council, which was co-chair by June last year, and Alicia is also the member, and Mohammad is also the member. So these the body should push the government of all countries to expedite. Hey, we need a common standard or regulation. For the standard, we cannot carry the liquid hydrogen from country A to country B if the receptacle is different.
Yeah.
So we definitely need this very urgently. And we are pushing ISO from Japanese government.
Thank you. Alicia, are we going fast enough in this? I mean, you're
Never.
involved in some of these platforms.
No, I think we're working, yes, with the International Hydrogen Trading Forum is the word I was looking for. That is the group that came out of Hydrogen Council, have been working on this. And it's really an emissions intensity standard. So it's not just carbon, it actually also includes NOx and SOx and all the other types of emissions that could occur. All the greenhouse gases, essentially. And there are things worse than carbon. Our semiconductor fabs are releasing gases that last for 10,000 years. So there are big things.
You're making it more complex.
Yes. So this is why I'm interested in semiconductors. So, but yes, I think we're there actually. As I said, already 80% of the shipping world has agreed on the sort of basics of this, and where most people agree on how to do it. And I think we're very close.
Very good. Well, let me ask you to join me in a hand of appreciation for this fantastic panel. I wish we had more time, but this is what it is. Thank you.